If you didn't know, the fellow Aiden Precision Coffee Maker has landed. Today we are going to go through all of the features of the brewer, talk about what makes this such an amazing home brewer. Hey, it's Josh at 8 Ounce with the fellow Aiden Precision Coffee Maker, and I would love to take some time to go through some of the features and what makes this brewer super unique and why it might be the right brewer for you at home. Okay, so what you see from the get-go is that this has a classic fellow design to it. It's matte black, box lines, a little bit of round in there, some ridged plastic, some smooth plastic. All in all, I think it fits in with the fellow aesthetic really nicely. Like a lot of other home coffee makers, this comes with the ability to brew a full pot of coffee. This brews up to 1.5 liters at a time, but what makes this brewer a little bit different is that it actually comes with two different coffee brewing baskets that take two different filter sizes. One for a full pot, this uses a Melita basket style filter, and then if you want a smaller pot, anything under 400 mils or so, you will use this little Melita cone number 2 basket size, and that's so that you can brew straight into a cup or straight into a fellow tumbler. And we'll talk a little bit about how this works in the operation of the machine, but let's do like a quick walkthrough of everything. On the front, we have a dial and a little screen. This will allow us to control the brewer. It has a detachable water tank that just slides into the side here. You can either take the water tank off or open it from the top. And then to get at the coffee brewing, we have this compartment here. And you're gonna see maybe one unique part about this, which is that there is a dial here that allows you to switch between two different shower head modes. And you'll see that there is a blue series of dots, and that's gonna correspond to the blue full batch basket. And then you can have a little green dot that corresponds to the single serve basket. And what this dial does is change whether or not these exterior holes are brewing water or are allowing water to pass through. For the single serve basket, we don't need to have these outer shower head raining down onto the coffee, so we turn that off so we can concentrate the flow of water directly where it matters the most. Once you put the basket in, the machine actually knows which basket is in thanks to a magnet that is cleverly placed on the bottom. And so if you try to brew with the full basket, but only the single serve shower head, it will tell you, and it won't let you do that. That's one of the things that makes this brewer smart. Next, let's talk about the carafe. The carafe is made of stainless steel, and it is well insulated, and it actually pours with no drip. Very easy to clean, very wide mouth. The coffee brews straight into a hole on the top. If the carafe is not in place, the spring at the bottom of the brew basket won't engage, and the coffee won't brew. All right, let's use the brewer. So turning the brewer on, waking it from sleep, we have the option of going straight into an instant brew. Pressing this will just brew with a default brew setting, but as you can see, I have the shower head switched in the wrong position, so I'll change that. It's now happy, and it will start to brew. With the instant brew, it will just brew through the entire amount of water that is in the tank. Whereas if you choose a profile, what they call a guided brew as well, you can select the amount of water that will be used. And as long as you have enough water in the tank, it will brew just fine. If you don't have the amount of water in the tank that you select to brew, it will brew through and then get mad at you for not having had enough water in there. So let's go through these features one by one. So we've gone through the instant brew. Let's go to the guided brew. The guided brew will allow us to choose from a set of preloaded profiles for light, medium, dark, and cold brew, as well as any custom profiles that we've created. And so let's just start with a light roast profile. Sounds delicious. From one cup, we'll see a green dot here. That green dot corresponds once again to the single serve basket. It's going to suggest, or actually mandate, that for anything smaller than a certain size, that we use the single serve basket and the single serve shower head. And then as we go up to 3.5 cups, we'll see that it switches to the full batch basket size and shower head. And so if I wanted to brew, let's say 6 cups or 975 mils, I can choose that, press this. It's gonna tell me, based on the ratio that's been pre-programmed into the profile, how much coffee I should be weighing out and then putting into the basket. That's nice. And then it will start the brew. Let's go back. Let's say I want to go back at any point in the process. You just have to dial it back all the way to 0 and it'll hit back. Cool. Next, we can actually create our own brew profiles. Now, what can we do with the profile? Let's have some fun. We can choose a name for it, some pre-built names such as my light, my medium, my dark, my cold, my decaf, or I can create a custom name. Entering a custom name on the little dial and button can be a little bit cumbersome, but we're gonna call this one Tasty. We can choose any temperature we'd like. Depending on what elevation you're at, you can go up to 99 degrees Celsius or all the way down to 50 degrees Celsius. Or you can turn off the heater entirely if you want to make cold brew, which is kind of cool. So I like to brew fairly light coffee, and I know that I'm a fan of getting a bit more of an extraction out of it, so I'm gonna go to 95 degrees. You can select what ratio of coffee you want. So the coffee to water ratio, I like a 1:16 ratio personally, so I'm gonna keep with that. Is it cold brew? No, it's a hot brew. And then in advance, this is where we can have some fun. We can set a bloom time. The bloom is just how much water is gonna be delivered in the first bit of brewing. So we're gonna enable the brew. The ratio of coffee to water for the bloom, I like a 1:3 ratio for my blooms. That makes sure that all of the coffee gets nice and saturated. For the duration of the bloom, kind of like if you're brewing a pour over, 30 seconds is a nice default, but I like to have a slightly longer bloom time. And then you can choose the temperature of the bloom as well, which is really cool. So once I've set the bloom, I can go back. For each profile, I can decide how to carry out the brew for both the single serve batch size and the full batch size. So if I want to change the number of pulses that I use for the single serve, I just go in here and I decide how many pulses I want to have. I'm going to do 4 pulses. The time in between each pulse, because they're quite small, I only need about 15 seconds, and I can choose the temperature of each pulse. That is commercial coffee brewer level control. Same for the batch. I like to do 6 pulses, time in between each. The more pulses you have, the less time you need in between each one, because there's not as much water being delivered each time. And I can change the temperature of each pulse. I think at the end I might bring the temperature down a little bit because we've extracted the coffee pretty well at that point. The Aiden Precision Coffee Maker allows you to brew coffee with crazy precision. As much precision as if you were trying to brew a pour over with a kettle. And actually, to be honest, even more. One more feature is that we can actually schedule coffee brews to be made 4 hours in the morning. So if you want to prep your coffee overnight, you can create a brew schedule. So I'm going to create a new brew schedule. I'd like my coffee to be ready when I wake up, 6 a.m. please. What profile do I want to have the schedule for? Well, I'm going to use light roast. The quantity that I want to brew, I want to brew 750 mils of water. And do I want to set this once? Do I want to have it go every day? Or do I want to set a custom amount of time where I can choose which day of the week to have this schedule active? I'm going to choose once. This is just for tomorrow. And the amount of coffee that I want to use for this is going to be about 44 grams. This little check mark beside enabled means that it's on. If I go to sleep, we can see on the top that it indicates that there is a brew scheduled for 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. And that is the time that the coffee is going to be ready, not the time that the coffee starts brewing. When we go through the settings, we can choose how many times the brewer chimes once it's done. It's got a nice little speaker on it. That speaker will come in handy later. We can keep it with 2 brews. For the clock, you can actually either adjust the time yourself, or if it's connected to the internet, it will automatically adjust the time based on the time zone that you're in. You can choose to display the time when it's asleep, if you want to do 24-hour time, and you can set what day of the week you're on as well. 4 units if you live in a country that uses the metric system, you can choose metric units. If you're in a country that uses the imperial system, you can use that as well, or play around, have some fun by changing things up a bit. And for precise units, that will either be ounces if you're in imperial or milliliters if you're in metric. You can here choose to enter advanced mode for instant brew, or just to have it brew whatever's available. What does advanced mode for instant brew do? It'll just set a default profile. Let's talk about what makes this brewer smart. Connectivity. When the brewer is connected to the internet via the fellow Brew with Aiden app, it will automatically update firmware, and it will allow you to share brew profiles in the app, which is a feature that's coming very soon in the app. You can run a descale mode on it. So as long as you have descaling liquid, let's say yes, empty the tank, add the descale liquid to it. It's just gonna brew a big brew with some descaling liquid in it to descale the shower head. You can also reset to factory settings if you want. You can choose which language you're in. You can set the elevation of your machine. And the reason why the elevation of your machine matters is the higher elevation you are, the lower a temperature of the water that you use is going to boil at. And so if you want to brew at 100 degrees Celsius, but you live at the elevation that we do in Calgary, which is at just over 1,000 meters above sea level, your water is not going to get any higher than about 96 degrees Celsius. And so it's not going to work. So it's important to have that elevation calibration. Next, here we can have a little bit of information about the version of the firmware, the model number, its name on Bluetooth, serial number, and its Wi-Fi address. That will come in handy if you ever need to manage any of the settings. The serial number will come in handy for registering your product with Fellow for warranty and whatnot. What Fellow has achieved with the Aiden Precision Coffee Maker is a brewer that combines the simplicity of one-touch brewing with the level of customization that you would hope for in the most fancy commercial brewer as well. Aiden is for people who want a beautiful piece on their kitchen counter, something that matches the aesthetic of their coffee brewing area or their kitchen. It's also for coffee enthusiasts who really care about fine-tuning the flavor of their coffee, and for anyone who appreciates the simplicity or the complexity of coffee in general. I hope you liked this walkthrough of the features of the Aiden Precision Coffee Maker. In case you didn't know this, it's available at 8ouncecoffee.ca. If you like these videos from 8 Ounce, you want to see more stuff, please let us know in the comments. It helps us make way better videos for you. Thank you so much for watching. Brew some coffee.